Tonight, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta Season 13 gave fans the kind of drama that leaves social media buzzing, group chats exploding, and everyone asking the same question. What just happened between Yandy and Rasheeda? From the moment the cameras cut to their tense exchange, it was clear this wasn't going to be just another scene. Whispers of betrayal, rumors of secret alliances, and long-buried resentments suddenly came crashing to the surface. Spice, caught in the middle, could barely hide her shock as the confrontation unfolded. For weeks, fans have speculated about the growing distance between Yandy and Rasheeda, but no one expected things to blow up this publicly. Yandy didn't hold back, calling out Rasheeda for shady behavior, hinting at behind-the-scenes allegiances, and questioning whether their so-called friendship was ever real. The tension was thick, the energy raw, and the fallout still unraveling. As the scene played out, viewers couldn't help but wonder if this was the breaking point. Was Rasheeda hiding more than she let on? Had Yandy finally reached her limit, and what role did Spice's presence play in the chaos? Buckle up, because this is the moment that could change everything. The lights of Atlanta glittered against the night sky, but inside the crowded venue, the energy was tense enough to cut with a knife. Spice had just wrapped her performance, the crowd still buzzing from her set, but everyone backstage knew the real show hadn't even started. Yandy's eyes scanned the room, her expression tight, her lips pressed together as though she was holding back an explosion. She had heard enough. Whispers, seen enough side-eyes, and felt enough distance to know something was brewing. And tonight, she wasn't going to let it slide any longer. Rasheeda, on the other hand, seemed determined to avoid any confrontation. She kept close to Kirk, her smile fixed but fragile, her body angled toward the exit as if she could simply slip out without being noticed. But Spice had already warned Yandy they were here, and once the word was out, there was no turning back. "I just don't understand," Yandy muttered under her breath, her voice rising as she spoke to Spice. "You confide in someone, you tell them your struggles, and then you hear it on blogs, you hear it on podcasts. That's not friendship, that's betrayal." Spice gave her a knowing look, torn between her loyalty to both women. Yandy, maybe it's just a misunderstanding. She tried, but even she didn't sound convinced. The tension only grew when a few fans backstage started murmuring, pointing out the obvious tension. Phones were ready, cameras were rolling, and everyone knew this could turn into one of those unforgettable reality TV moments that would set timelines on fire for weeks. Yandy stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Rasheeda, since you got so much to say in confessionals and podcasts, say it now. Say it to my face." The room fell silent. The kind of silence that amplifies every breath, every nervous shuffle. Rasheeda froze for a moment, then finally turned around to face Yandy. Her smile dropped, replaced by a defensive glare. "You really think I'm the one talking about you? I got better things to do than sit around running my mouth about your husband and your business." Rasheeda snapped, her tone sharper than anyone expected, but Yandy wasn't having it. Better things to do. "Girl, don't play with me. I sat down with you hard on my sleeve, telling you what I was going through. And then I hear it word for word, damn near repeated on a podcast. And don't act like you don't know exactly what I'm talking about." Fans watching from the side couldn't believe how raw it was getting. Some whispered that this had been building for months, while others pulled out their phones to catch every second. Spice shifted uncomfortably, glancing between the two women as though she wanted to disappear but couldn't. Rasheeda shook her head, her voice trembling between anger and disbelief. "I never once put your business out there, and if something I said got twisted, that's not on me. Maybe people just like to spin things." Yandy leaned in, her voice low but venomous. "Don't gaslight me. You knew what you were doing. You knew exactly who would hear it and how it would come back to me. You don't get to play innocent now." The air in the room was electric, heavy with the kind of drama that could end friendships forever. Kirk tried to step in, raising his hands as if to calm things down, but his presence only made things worse. "Why are you even here, Kirk?" Yandy snapped, her voice rising again. "You got your own mess to clean up. Maybe you should focus on that instead of hiding behind Rasheeda." Spice gasped quietly, realizing Yandy wasn't just coming for Rasheeda anymore. She was coming for everything. Every hidden truth, every rumor, every unspoken tension. Rasheeda's face flushed with anger, her voice breaking as she shouted back, "Don't you dare bring my marriage into this. You don't know what we go through. You don't know the half of it. You think your life is perfect. Please, everyone knows you're just as messy as the rest of us." The crowd around them erupted in murmurs, gasps, and even a few nervous laughs. Fans knew this was the kind of fight that could shatter alliances and shift the whole dynamic of the show. Yandy's voice cracked as emotion poured out of her. "I thought we were friends. I thought we had each other's backs. But every time I turn around, there's another comment, another shady remark, another reason to question if you ever really cared. Rasheeda's eyes softened for a moment, almost as if she wanted to explain, but then she hardened again, unwilling to show vulnerability. You made your choice, Yandy. You put yourself in this position. Don't act like I'm the villain here. The words stung, and Yandy's hands shook as she tried to keep her composure. Spice tried to interject, stepping between them with her hands out. Ladies, this is too much. Y'all don't need to be doing this right here, right now. Take a breath, cool down. But neither woman was willing to back down. Nah, Spice, Yandy said firmly, her eyes locked on Rasheeda. This has been building for too long. She owes me an explanation, and I'm not leaving without it. Rasheeda crossed her arms, her body language defensive, but her eyes blazing. You want the truth? Fine. You were never my friend. You were convenient. You were someone I could talk to when it suited me, but don't act like this bond we had was deeper than it really was. The words cut through Yandy like a knife. The room went deadly quiet again, every eye glued to the two women. So that's what it is, Yandy whispered, her voice trembling. All this time I thought we were building something real, and you just what? Used me when it was easy? Threw me away when it wasn't. Rasheeda didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. Kirk shifted uncomfortably beside her clearly, wishing he could pull her out of the moment, but it was too late. The damage was done. Yandy turned to Spice, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You see what I mean? You see how quick she is to dismiss everything we went through? Spice nodded slowly, torn between her friends, unsure of how to fix something that seemed so broken. It's not right, she said softly. It's just not right. The room buzzed with tension as the standoff continued, fans still recording, waiting for the next explosion. Everyone could sense that the night wasn't over, that there was still more to be said, more to be revealed, and more hearts to be broken before anyone walked away. The silence after Rasheeda's cold admission hung like a storm cloud over the room. Even with the loud chatter from the concert crowd spilling in from outside, it felt as though time had stopped for everyone standing nearby. The tension was unbearable. Every glance, every movement charged with the kind of energy that made people lean in just to catch the next word. Yandy took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice, but her emotions betrayed her. So that's it? She asked, her tone a mixture of disbelief and pain. Years of sharing secrets, supporting each other through all kinds of chaos, and now you say we were never friends. Do you even hear yourself? Rasheeda's eyes flickered, but she stayed firm. You think friendship means you can unload your problems on me and then blame me when the world hears about them? I didn't tell the blogs. I didn't sit there trying to ruin you. If people twisted something I said, that's on them, not me. Yandy shook her head. Nah, it don't work like that. When I confide in you, I expect that to stay between us. Not to hear it repeated, not to see it turned into gossip. You had the power to protect me, but you chose not to. That's betrayal, plain and simple. Spice stepped in again, holding her hands up like a referee trying to break up a fight. Listen, both of y'all are hurt, and it's clear things got out of control, but standing here screaming at each other isn't going to fix it. You need to figure out if you can move past this or if this is the end. But neither woman seemed ready to calm down. In fact, the more Spice tried to mediate, the more it fueled the fire. Kirk tugged gently at Rasheeda's arm, whispering, "Let's just go. This ain't worth it." But Rasheeda pulled away. "No!" she snapped, her voice louder now. "I'm not running anymore. I'm tired of acting like everything's fine while she paints me as the villain. Yandy, you've been talking too. You've been making your little comments, your slick remarks. Don't sit here and pretend like your hands are clean. Your hands are clean." The crowd erupted in gasps. Suddenly fans realized this wasn't just about a single podcast or a few careless words. This was about months, maybe years of tension boiling over. People whispered that maybe Rasheeda had receipts of her own, that maybe Yandy wasn't as innocent as she claimed. Yandy's eyes widened, her voice sharp with fury. What comments? What slick remarks? Name one time I ever went on record trashing you. Go ahead, name it. Rasheeda hesitated, then smirked bitterly. You really want me to? Because once I start, I'm not stopping. You've been telling people behind the scenes that I only stick around in this marriage for appearances. You've been saying I'm fake, that I'm holding on to Kirk just for a storyline. And you want to talk about betrayal? The room gasped again, the word fake cutting through the air like a knife. Spice's eyes went wide, clearly shocked at the accusation. Rasheeda, that's heavy. Are you sure? Rasheeda folded her arms, her gaze locked on Yandy. I'm damn sure. People tell me what you've been saying, Yandy. Don't act brand new now. Yandy's jaw dropped. Her hands trembled as she pointed toward Rasheeda. That's a lie, that's a straight up lie, and you know it. I never said you're fake. I never said your marriage is for show. If anything, I defended you when people tried to come at you. I told them you were strong, that you were fighting for your family, and this is how you repay me. The argument was spiraling, drawing in everyone around them. Crew members shifted uncomfortably, unsure if they should step in or keep filming. Fans whispered about how this would look on the next episode. Already imagining the hashtags and the online debates, Spice raised her voice, trying to be heard over the chaos. Y'all need to stop. This is going too far. Friendship or not, these words cut deep. Once you put this out there, it's hard to take it back. But the damage was already done. The back and forth had turned into a flood of accusations, each one harsher than the last. Rasheeda stepped closer, her voice low but icy. You think you're the only one who's been hurt? You think you're the only one with feelings? You've thrown shade at me in ways you don't even realize. But the difference is, I didn't run around crying about it. I took it. I stayed quiet, but I'm done being quiet now. Yandy clenched her fists, fighting back tears. I can't believe you. I can't believe this is what it's come to. I thought you were one of the real ones, but you were just waiting for your chance to turn on me. The raw emotion in her voice made the room fall silent again. Even Rasheeda looked shaken, her eyes softening for a brief second before she steeled herself once more. Kirk tugged at her arm again, more urgently this time. Babe, let's just go. This ain't good for nobody. But before Rasheeda could answer, a voice from the crowd broke through the silence. What about Jasmine? All heads turned at once, the name hanging in the air like a bomb about to explode. Fans immediately started buzzing because everyone knew Jasmine's history with Kirk had been a sore spot for years. And now to hear her name thrown into this already explosive fight sent shockwaves through the room. Yandy's eyes narrowed. Exactly, that's what I've been saying. She's closer to Jasmine than anyone realizes. They vacation together. They hang out like nothing ever happened. And I'm supposed to believe she never betrayed me. Please. Rasheeda's face flushed with anger, her voice rising. Don't you dare bring Jasmine into this. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what I've had to go through, the decisions I've had to make. You have no right. Spice's mouth dropped open. Wait, so Yandy's not making it up? You and Jasmine are really that close? The room buzzed with disbelief. People pulled out their phones again, already knowing this clip would blow up online. Hashtags were forming in their minds. Friendship, betrayal, Jasmine connection, LHHATL, truth. Rasheeda shook her head furiously. No, that's not what this is. I don't owe you all explanations about who I talk to or where I go. What I do in my life is my business. But it was too late. The seed had been planted and fans were already taking sides. Whispers of secret alliances, hidden friendships, and untold betrayals spread through the crowd like wildfire. Yandy stepped forward again, her voice trembling but powerful. You see, this is what I'm talking about. All these secrets, all these backdoor conversations. I thought you were real with me, but the whole time you were cozying up with the one person you knew would cut me the deepest. Rasheeda's eyes filled with fury. You don't get it, Yandy. You never will. You think this is about you, but it's bigger than that. You don't understand the choices I've had to make to keep my life together. The tension was unbearable. The room on edge as both women stood there, neither willing to back down. The energy felt like it could erupt at any second, and the look in their eyes made it clear this wasn't anywhere near over. The chaos that followed seemed endless. Everyone was still buzzing from the shocking events that unfolded, but the tension in the room refused to die down. Whispers filled the air like smoke, each person adding their own version of the story, twisting it into something darker and heavier. No one wanted to believe that it had actually happened, yet the look on everyone's faces proved they all knew it was real. The atmosphere was heavy, suffocating, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the weight of the drama. Phones kept buzzing, cameras kept flashing, and people's emotions were boiling over into heated arguments that only fueled the storm. Rasheeda sat apart from the crowd, her eyes red and swollen from holding back tears. Though her pride wouldn't let them fall, she wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand justice for what had just happened. But she also knew every move she made now would be captured, analyzed, and spread like wildfire. Every second of silence only made the anger inside her grow like a fire waiting to consume everything in its path. Mendes, on the other hand, stood tall but restless, pacing back and forth with frustration written all over his face. He wanted to defend himself, to claim that things had gone too far too fast. But deep down, he knew the damage was already done. The room wasn't just full of people anymore. It was full of judgment, eyes locked on him with disgust and disbelief. Outside the venue, word had already spread. Fans had caught snippets of what went down, and social media was already exploding with hashtags and clips taken from shaky phone cameras. The narrative was forming fast, spinning out of control, and neither Menz nor Rasheeda could stop. Hilma, How could he do that to her? One tweet read, another screamed, Rasheeda deserves better. The tide of public opinion was crashing down hard and merciless. The noise of the online world made its way back into the room as people scrolled through their feeds, showing each other the live reactions pouring in. It was like the entire world was watching them unravel in real time. Yandy, caught in the middle, felt torn apart. She was used to drama, used to conflict, but this was different. This was brutal, raw, and too close to home. She tried to speak, tried to calm both sides, but her voice was drowned out by the chaos. She felt powerless as her husband's reputation crumbled before her eyes, and her friend's pain became the center of everyone's gossip. She wanted to protect them both, but no matter what she said, she knew someone would accuse her of picking sides. The pressure made her chest tighten, and she struggled to breathe as the weight of it all pressed down on her. Meanwhile, producers of the show huddled in a corner, whispering with wide eyes and tense expressions. They had dealt with drama before. It was part of the game, but this was different. This was crossing a line that no amount of editing or clever storytelling could fix. They knew the network would come down hard on them if they couldn't control the fallout. Already phone calls were being made to executives, lawyers, and publicists. The wheels of damage control were spinning, but even they could feel it was too late. The story was too explosive, too raw, and too viral to contain. Back in the room, Rasheeda finally broke her silence. Her voice shook at first, but it carried enough strength to silence the crowd. You don't get to put your hands on me. Not here. Not ever. Her words cut through the noise, heavy and sharp, leaving Mendes frozen in place. For a moment, the room went quiet, everyone holding their breath to see how he would respond. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but no words came out. The silence stretched and the weight of it pressed down harder than any scream could have. Then came the moment no one expected. Rasheeda pulled out her phone and went live. Her hands trembled slightly, but her resolve was clear. Within seconds, thousands of fans joined her stream, watching in disbelief as she laid it all bare. Y'all think you know what goes on behind the scenes, but let me show you the truth, she said, her eyes burning with both pain and determination. The comment section flooded instantly with people typing furiously, demanding to know more, demanding answers. Her voice cracked as she recounted what had just happened, but she refused to let the tears fall. The rawness of her emotion made the video even more powerful. More powerful. Mendes could only watch as his name got dragged in real time. He wanted to snatch the phone out of her hand to stop her from turning the world against him, but he knew that would only make things worse. Every second she spoke was another nail in his coffin, another reason for fans to turn against him. His face twisted with regret, frustration, and anger, but no matter what he felt, the damage was done. The live stream spread like wildfire. Within minutes, it was trending across multiple platforms and major gossip blogs were already reposting it. Headlines were forming in real time. Mendeshi's caught in shocking altercation with Rasheeda. Rasheeda goes live after violent confrontation. Love and hip-hop scandal shakes the internet. The frenzy was unstoppable, and the more people watched, the more outraged they became. As the night dragged on, the energy in the room grew colder, heavier. Friendships were tested, alliances shifted, and everyone knew things would never be the same again. Some people tried to comfort Rasheeda, while others tried to pull Mendes aside, urging him to leave before things escalated further. But he stood his ground, refusing to walk away. Even as the tension reached a boiling point, the cameras were still rolling, catching every glance, every word, every spark that threatened to ignite another explosion. Behind the scenes, producers debated whether to shut it all down or let it play out. The drama was gold for television, but it was poison for reputations. They knew fans loved chaos, but they also knew sponsors and networks had limits. If they crossed those lines, the entire show could crumble. Still, part of them couldn't resist. This was reality TV at its most raw and unfiltered, the kind of scandal that drew millions of eyes. As dawn approached, the fallout only grew louder. Fans outside the venue screamed for answers. Paparazzi swarmed the streets, and every news outlet wanted a piece of the story. The line between reality and spectacle blurred until no one could tell the difference anymore. For Rasheeda, the pain was real. For men, DCs, the regret was real. But for the world watching, it was entertainment. Scandal served up on a silver platter. Yet, even in the middle of the chaos, a deeper question lingered in everyone's mind. Could either of them come back from this? Or was this the moment that would haunt them forever? The scandal that would define their legacy and tear apart everything they had built? The atmosphere around the entire situation had reached a boiling point, and everyone involved felt the weight of it pressing down on them. By now, the rumors were spreading like wildfire, traveling from one blog to another, from social media accounts to gossip forums. until it felt like the whole world was talking about it. The more the news spread, the less control anyone had over the narrative, and that became the most frightening part for everyone close to the story. People weren't just repeating the facts anymore, they were twisting them, adding fuel to the fire, and creating their own exaggerated versions that made the original situation look even more scandalous. Every new detail, whether true or not, only made the drama feel larger and more destructive. Inside the circle of those most affected, there was a growing sense of helplessness. Some of them were frustrated, others were scared, and a few were angry at how quickly things had escalated. There were conversations happening in whispered corners, arguments breaking out between people who used to be allies, and emotional breakdowns when the pressure became too heavy to carry. Even the strongest personalities, the ones who usually kept their emotions hidden, were beginning to crack. There were late-night phone calls, frantic text messages, and secret meetings to figure out what could be done. But no one had a clear answer. The chaos had become bigger than them, and it was spinning out of control. Meanwhile, the media kept pouring gasoline on the fire. Journalists were calling non-stop, desperate for exclusive interviews. Paparazzi followed them at every turn, snapping photos of nervous faces and heated conversations, ready to spin them into explosive headlines. The cameras caught the smallest expressions, an angry glance, a tired sigh, a tear wiped away, and turned them into symbols of betrayal or heartbreak. Every picture became a story, and every story turned into a viral debate. Fans, followers, and strangers alike were taking sides, arguing about who was right, who was wrong, and who deserved the blame. The court of public opinion was harsher than anything else, and it didn't seem like anyone could escape its judgment. Behind closed doors, emotions were running high. Some of the closest relationships began to fracture, with accusations being thrown around and trust fading fast. There were heated shouting matches, slamming doors, and nights spent apart because the tension was too unbearable. Every time one conflict seemed to cool down, another one erupted, leaving them caught in an endless cycle of confrontation and regret. The situation had created a storm that no one knew how to calm, and it was tearing apart bonds that once felt unbreakable. The ones who were still holding on tried to put on a brave face in public, but even that was starting to fall apart. Appearances at events turned into awkward spectacles, with forced smiles that fooled no one. When the cameras rolled, they tried to act like everything was fine, but their eyes told a different story. The tension was too visible, too raw, and too impossible to hide. The audience could sense it, and that only fueled the speculation further. People weren't just watching the show anymore. They were dissecting every single moment, searching for signs of truth behind the fiction. And then came the breaking point. A confrontation that had been building for weeks finally exploded, and it happened at the worst possible time. Right when the cameras were rolling and every word, every expression, every ounce of anger was captured in full. The argument started small, a disagreement that might have been resolved quietly under different circumstances, but the pressure had built up for too long. Voices rose, accusations flew, and before anyone could step in to calm the storm, it escalated into something raw, ugly, and unforgettable. Those who witnessed it firsthand stood frozen in shock, torn between stepping in to help and knowing that the damage was already done. Once the words had been spoken, once the anger had been unleashed, there was no turning back. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating, filled with the realization that nothing would ever be the same again. Afterward, the fallout was immediate. The clip spread across social media within hours, replayed endlessly by people who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Reactions poured in from fans, critics, and even other celebrities, each one more intense than the last. Some were horrified, others were gleeful, and a few claimed they had seen it coming all along. The flood of opinions made the situation even more unbearable as those involved were forced to watch their private pain become public entertainment. Behind the scenes, the aftermath was brutal. Emotions were shattered. Relationships were hanging by a thread, and the question of what would come next loomed over everyone like a shadow. There were apologies, but they sounded hollow. There were promises to fix things, but no one truly believed them. The damage had already been done, and the scars were going to last much longer than the headlines. As the dust settled, some of them began to wonder if this was the end of everything they had worked for. The chaos wasn't just personal, it threatened to destroy careers, reputations, and futures. Sponsors were backing out.